Hey guys, it's Roscoe, and on the Space Couch today, we're going to start running through my Harry Turtledove book collection. Now, for those of you who don't know Harry Turtledove, he is described as the master of alternate history. So, the South wins the Civil War, the Second World War happens, but it's in a magical scenario, all that sort of stuff, just iterations on the history, you know, alternate history. And I've got loads of his books, and it's going to be a multiple part of videos, I think. But the first ones I'm going to share with you is called World War, and the premise of that is during the Second World War, aliens invade planet Earth, lizards. So you see, I don't know if it's a Spitfire or whatever, and the lizards here. This race of lizards, they're very highly advanced, but their society moves very, very slowly, incremental over thousands of years, changes in technology, unlike humans. When they first send their probe to Earth, it's like in the 14th century, so they see pictures of people in armour on horseback, so they think this planet's going to be a walkover when they arrive with their invasion fleet centuries later. But of course, by that time, during the Second World War, industrialisation is happening. So there is the cover of that one. The Second World War, as you've never seen it fought before. War seethed across the planet. Hostility spread in ever-widening circles of destruction. Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, Britain, France, Japan, Italy, Africa. The fate of the world hung in the balance. Then the real enemy arrived. Out of the skies came an invasion force the likes of which Earth had never known, and World War was truly joined. The invaders were inhuman and they were unstoppable. Their weaponry was overwhelming and their goal was simple. Fleet Lord Atvar had arrived to claim Earth for the Empire. So yes, that's the first one, in the balance when they arrive and throws everything into chaos. Second one, tilting the balance. Here you see them, and that looks like, I don't know if that's American or a German fighter. So the war continues, basically. Let's see what it says this time. World War II screeched to a halt as the great military powers scrambled to meet an even deadlier foe. The enemy's formidable technology made their victory seem inevitable. Already Berlin and Washington DC had been vaporised by atom bombs, which humans don't have at that stage, but they get them by stealing bits of the explosive metal from the bomb sites. And large parts of the Soviet Union, the United States, Germany and its conquests lay under the invaders' control. Yet humanity refused to surrender so easily, even if the enemy's tanks, armoured personnel carriers and jet aircraft seemed unstoppable. The human resistance fighters became fiendishly clever, ruthless at finding and exploiting the weaknesses of their foe. While Stalin, Churchill, Roosevelt and Tojo planned strategy, the real war continued. In Warsaw, Jews welcomed the invaders as liberators, only to be cruelly disillusioned. In China, the communist guerrillas used every trick they knew. And just as an aside, it turns out that ginger is like crack cocaine to the lizards. So they're always like smuggling in ginger and they just go mad, literally crazy, deranged, guns firing off everywhere. And it also puts them into heat. So they start mating uncontrollably as well. It's fascinating detail. Whether delivering supplies and tiny biplanes to partisans across the vast steppes of Russia, working furiously to understand the enemy's captured radar in England, or battling house to house on the streets of Chicago, humanity would not give up. Meanwhile, an ingenious German panzer colonel had managed to steal some of the enemy's plutonium, and now the Russians, Germans, Americans and Japanese were all frantically labouring to make their own bombs. In this, the second volume of Turtledove's global saga of alternate history, humanity grows more resourceful, even as the menace worsens and the very survival of the planet is at stake. Next, upsetting the balance. I loved all the covers for these as well. So here we see more of them coming to attack, and there's one there. So this one. Britain, Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, Japan, China, the United States. When the Second World War started, they lined up against each other on one side or the other, Axis versus Allies, mortal enemies. But suddenly their only hope for survival, let alone victory, was to unite to stop a mighty foe, one whose frighteningly advanced technology seemed invincible, but one in which humanity is catching up with. Alien beings, even worse than the Nazis, were loose on the earth. They're not actually, when I think about it. From Warsaw to Moscow to China's enemy-occupied forbidden city, the nations of the world had been forced into an uneasy alliance since humanity began its struggle against overwhelming odds. In Britain and Germany, where the banshee wail of hostile jets screamed across the land, secret caches of terrifying, once forbidden weapons were unearthed, and hitherto unthinkable tactics were brought into action against the common enemy. Gas attacks, I think that was. Brilliant military strategists faced challenges unprecedented in the history of warfare. Even as fuel shortages forced people back to the horse and cart, the world's physicists worked desperately to create Earth's first atom bombs with horrific results. In Germany, the pile goes critical and they can't stop it. And I think it's in Heidelberg. Might even be Oppenheimer or whoever, I'm not sure. Or Heisenberg, but it's the town of Heidelberg. And it's just a nuclear wasteland. It's poisoned. City after city joined the radioactive pyre as the planet fled into fiery ruins because everyone starts lobbing nukes. Yet the nightmare conflict continued on land, sea and in the air as the world sank ever deeper into global combat. The tactics of daredevil guerrillas everywhere grew increasingly ingenious against a technologically superior foe for whose desperate retaliation would grow ever more fearsome. No one had put the world in such deadly peril before, but if the carnage and slaughter ever stopped, would there be any pieces to pick up? And the final one in that part is this, striking the balance, and here you see them in Egypt. When alien beings armed with devastatingly superior military technology and bent on global conquest invaded Earth, Allied and Axis forces were already engaged in a bloody conflict, the Second World War, that spanned the whole globe. Suddenly humans were forced to cease fighting each other and unite against this deadly new enemy from beyond the solar system. For the moment, bitter disputes between different nations had to be set aside in the face of the greatest threat ever to menace the planet. Human tenacity, ingenuity and courage meant that the aliens faced a challenge tougher than any they had experienced before. Even when nuclear weapons were unleashed by the invaders against some of Earth's key cities, mankind's fighting spirit remained unbroken, and the world's scientists and military experts, against desperate odds, found new ways to harness this terrifying new force of destruction to hammer the extraterrestrial foe. From China to North Africa, from hit-and-run cavalry raids in the American West to tank clashes in Eastern Europe, the worldwide conflict raged. Now battlefield defeats, supply shortages, guerrilla warfare in their occupied territories, rebellion within their own ranks, and atomic attacks forced alien leaders to rethink drastically their strategy and tactics. Was it going to be necessary to destroy the Earth in order to save it? So that is the fourth of the Balance series in World War. And that concludes that arc. There is another arc that happens because that's just them settling the World War and dividing the planet between them. The next one is when the colonisation fleet that was on its way arrives. And that will be in the next video. But for now, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my Harry Turtledove book collection. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this content. Leave me a comment or suggestion for what topic you'd like to see discussed, or like the video.